you very much, Bolarinwa. My name is Rakus-Wojciechowski. It's a pleasure to be here representing the Youth Sustainability Development Conference today, the GPODS Fellowship, as well as the Global Goals Ambassadors Program of the United Nations Association. Now, I only got into this realm of public speaking and sustainable development after college, so this is still relatively new to me, 3 years ago exactly. And since then, I've just immersed myself in that realm. I've explored all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I've immersed myself in experiential learning opportunities. And most importantly, I just asked questions and got to get to the root of the organizations that I'm working with, and those whose passions really aligned most with mine. Those are the ones that I decided to pursue. So hopefully that's a good introduction for now, and we can commence with any questions you have for me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much for that brief introduction, Ms. Caroline. So diving into our topic for today, our topic is building leadership qualities through public speaking. But before we go into the qualities, I would like us to introduce our listeners into what public speaking is. So Ms. Caroline, you can tell us what you know about public speaking, then we go into the importance of public speaking. Thank you.
Sounds good. So public speaking to me is a form of community communication. It's an opportunity to really lend yourself as a teacher of free education or informal education, whether it's the experiential knowledge that you have obtained from your life or a condensed version of your own research and academic knowledge. As a public speaker, you have the opportunity to share this information with crowds and with people who may not be as well versed in that subject or are more interested in learning about that subject. And there are many ways to distribute new knowledge, whether it's articles or public policy, but personally, I feel like tone can often be lost in those articles, or perhaps we become more professional than relatable. And to me, public speaking is more personable and more approachable. So, for example, I know when you asked me to be a public speaker, I may have come off as a bit intimidating, but now that we are having this interview and this conversation, to me, that is what public speaking really is. It's getting to know what the root issues are that we want to address and getting to know each other and seeing what we are passionate about and seeing how we'd like to commence change in the world. So that to me is public speaking.
Great, great, great. That's actually true. And we like based on my research, I could find public speaking as a way of actually, presenting either a speech or an advocacy to a live audience. And looking further, we find the importance of public speaking in leadership roles. We could see public speaking showing up in leadership roles such as building confidence, in advocacy, and in communication business. What other aspects of leadership roles do you think public speaking helps in building?
Yeah, so I guess the question you're asking is the importance of public speaking in leadership. It really does boil down to leaders needing to be able to communicate their ideas clearly. And usually leaders have some sort of, as I said earlier, previous academic or experiential knowledge that gains them that recognition for their work. But if they aren't able to communicate it clearly to their audience, then that is not really beneficial to anyone. If we are to make a business comparison as well, then the more confident that a leader is in their speech or their product, the better it sells. So the importance of public speaking and leadership is paramount because they need to be confident, they need to be very well communicating their ideas, and they also just I would say that they need to be organized as well in their thoughts and the way that they convey their message to their audience.
True. Well, that is true. Leaders actually needs to understand the tone and they need to understand their topic better than focusing on the outlook they perceive from their audience. Let's go further. And I based on my what I found public speaking showing in certain leadership qualities, such as accountability. It helps in building communication. It helps in building confidence. It helps leaders in building advocacy for a good cause, and also it helps in eliminating fears. So let's go into eliminating fears. We see so many people in our world who are mostly introverts. They have the fear of large gatherings. But some people are leaders, some are listeners. But we have some leaders that are introverted. How can they build their leadership qualities through public speaking while they are introverted?
You know, I actually appreciate this question so much because believe it or not, up to secondary school, I was an introvert. Would you believe that?
Yeah.
I I did not speak out very much, but then there were issues that, began to impassion me where, I saw that things needed change, but they weren't just going to happen by themselves. So I started speaking up. And yeah, it was very, very difficult at first, but I had to try, right? Someone had to. So I would say practice, practice, practice. Usually start, even today, by running ideas with friends, make it very as low stakes as possible. And the more that I say the ideas out loud, or the more you say your ideas out loud, the easier it is for you to present them later on. It becomes almost muscle memory. So definitely that. Next, I would also say practice saying it to yourself in the mirror while maintaining eye contact with yourself. It sounds weird, but the more self-aware you are, the more, eye contact you make with yourself, the easier it is then to make eye contact with your audience, which I'm not sure if this is, something that you already were aware of, but the more eye contact you make with someone, the more easier it is to facilitate a connection with them, to make them listen and, feel also passionate and inspired by your subject. So I'd say becoming aware of how you present and your body language and your eye muscles and your eye contact, that is definitely also a plus. I would also say, like I said, engaging in more low stakes presentations when possible, just getting yourself involved to begin with, and work up your confidence as time goes on. Perhaps start publicly speaking as part of a team, giving presentations at work or in your community, and then work your way up to doing a solo job. And I know I mentioned practicing with your friends earlier, but it will also give you a chance to find the questions that you didn't, know that other people could have. So the holes in your presentation, and then perhaps they ask you a question that you are unprepared to answer, and in time, you may find that you will hone those skills to dodge the questions fluidly. But if you have no poker face like I do, you'll want to be as prepared as possible for any of those kinds of questions. So you learn to think how either your investors or your competition might be thinking as well. So that'll help with the fluidity there. Honestly, the best piece of advice that I can offer that someone offered me once is, if you don't know the answer to the question, answer that truthfully and say, I don't have the answer for you now, but I can find out for you. And that's honestly, a couple of the first steps that I would say, yeah, practice as much as possible. Start by publicly speaking to your friends and to your familiars where, you won't get judged and actually will feel more encouraged. And remember, behind it all is the passion that you have for a particular subject. So when you present it, that is what's going to shine through in the end.
True, true. Thank you actually for that. So in summary, what you told us is for introverts who are leaders to get to know their audience, get to exercise more practice, and also they should learn to understand their topic. That's great. In addition to that as well, for those who are introverted, who are leaders, you can go into public speaking by also writing out a speech, practicing your speech. You don't need to go word for word with your speech, but you can just organize key points.
Mhm.
You organize key points and you understand the subject. That's where you will be able to relate with the people. Also, you need to embrace your anxiety. We have so many people who are anxious of seeing crowds. You need to embrace the anxiety and understand that it is you against you while you are also sending out your message to the people.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Also, we find when we talk about leadership, we understand leaders always, leaders are advocates, leaders are innovators. So leaders advocate for good cause. And we see public speaking as well. Public speaking deals with people, deals with large numbers of people. So there's a correlation between public speaking and leadership. So how does public speaking helps leadership? How does it help good leaders advocate for a good cause? How does it help them correlates what they have in advocacy. How do they present it to the people? How do they share their ideas and all that? So you can tell us what you know on that. So thank you.
Definitely, definitely. Again, I think it goes back to the passion speaking for itself. So if you are passionate about something and are coming from a place where you are trying to build others up through your work, it's going to shine through. Public speaking is a great tool, not only for getting your point across and your passion across, but seeing how your passions and that of your audience can also collaborate on other overlapping passions and initiatives. So that I think is one way where public speaking is going to be beneficial for good advocacy, but also in exercising leadership, we have seen presidents and leaders of countries and businesses use public speaking as a way to convey information to their constituents or to their investors. And keeping that channel of transparency and communication open is important in building trust. Your people must be able to trust you, but also to feel inspired by you. One of the best things that I heard at the YOUNGA Youth Summit this past year was they didn't make a seat for us at the table, so we made our own table. This is true in public speaking as well. If nobody is speaking out about the subjects that interest you or that you are passionate about and you think need the change, you need to become that leader and change the mind. And public speaking, I think, is a great tool for that.
Okay, thank you. So, in summary, if you have no supporters, you need to be a cheerleader. That's what you're actually briefing us about. That is
Exactly.
great. That is great. I can see we've actually went through a list of topics. So our last topic is how do public speaking help? We've understand how public speaking helps in making good advocacy for leaders. Now, how do public speaking helps in exercising leadership?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to what I just said about being able to really have your constituents trust you, and also understand where you're coming from, being transparent, communicating clearly. But I guess to boil it down easier, for me, I'll use an example for the Youth Sustainability Development Conference. I hadn't really given much thought to the issues that, I mentioned earlier that my sustainable development background was kind of non-traditional, non-linear. I touched on a various amount of fields, and before I found education policy being really the area that I want to focus on, I was doing a lot of innovative programming. I was doing a lot of the things that education policy needs, but not conveying it to others. So when I teamed up with the Youth Sustainability Development Conference as their Chief Partnership and Innovation Officer, I then kind of became their sponsorships person. I became their mentorship recruiter because we are offering a global access to incredible mentors around the world, as well as going out to potential investors and being like, hey, we think this is important. This is why we think your company should align with our values and why it would benefit you. So in that way, I had to exercise my public speaking experience as a leader for that organization to really not only build the brand of YSDC, but also to promote this idea that education, traditional education, is no longer working in areas of the world. So we want to promote a better way of accessing education, a more equitable, a more applicable almost way of finding education throughout the world, as opposed to just going to school or learning from your family members and community. But we want to be able to access the different experiences that our mentors have had and see how those experiences our delegates can learn from. And I think in that way, leadership, how public speaking can help exercise good leadership, is because you are creating these connections, you are advocating for something that you are passionate about and continuing to make it better, and not just for yourself or for your own values, but to make other people's lives better as well. In so doing, again, your passion is coming across, you are building support for a cause that is greater than yourself and more self-sustaining than yourself. And I think that is, inherently why we choose to become public speakers, is because we are seeing these injustices in the world, and we want people to notice and to dedicate themselves to our cause as well.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for that. So you actually just made us understand that we need to exercise leadership through public speaking. You need to understand the values of what you're advocating for, and you need to ensure that your listeners trust you. And how do you ensure your listeners trust you? By building transparency, which is one of the leadership skills. building accountability and also humility. So for those of you joining us, our guest for today is Miss Caroline Rakus-Wojciechowski, and she's a graduate of Harvard College. And our topic for today is building leadership qualities through public speaking. We've gone through a couple of contents such as public speaking, its importance. We will hand it over to our listeners. Are there any questions, any concerns you want to share out with us? Is there anything you would like to be enlightened about? Feel free to ask a question. Thanks.
If not, I would just like to add one other thing, is that my experience as a public speaker has also honed my listening skills and really honed my creativity as well. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's experienced this. I'm sure you, Bolarinwa, have also experienced it, and our audience as well. But when you are advocating for something and doing what I do, for example, going to sponsors, going to experts in their field saying, would you like to be a mentor, you are listening as well to the concerns of those individuals, or you are listening to the needs of your community that you want to serve, and seeing how your skills can benefit others as well. So that's just something I think would be important to highlight in terms of public speaking.
That's actually true. When we engage in, just like said, practice, consistent practice in public speaking helps in building these qualities leaders need to get, such as being able to understand the source of advocacy you're making
Hmm.
your listeners also understand you. There are two forms of making people do what you intend to make them do, which is leadership and intimidation. And everything still is correlates with public speaking. You don't intimidate when you are going into public speaking. Public speaking calls for leadership. We have a question. We have a question from Aswin Raghav. He says, one experience where you felt great about yourself and another where you felt disappointed about something. It would be great to hear how you navigated through these two different situations and emotions. So tell us about that.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Where I felt disappointed about something. I guess I should start with that one, but I'm the type of person who tries to find the positive in every situation, so this one's actually gonna make me require some thinking. Um, actually, I can speak to this a little bit. So, when, for example, I was asked to speak at the avant-garde sustainability discourse, they were focusing on digital innovation, which at the time, like, I did not know very much about cryptocurrency or information and telecommunication systems. I actually knew very little about it, and they asked me to tie it back into education. And at the time, I had done some research about it, and I almost felt like a fraud for them, choosing me, reaching out to me. Someone had recommended me for this program, and I said, I don't know why you would do that. I don't know that much about digital innovation. But at the core, I think it is trying to bridge those connections between what you already know and, like I said earlier, being creative and innovative with solutions. So the more I looked into it, the more I learned about information and telecommunication systems with respect to education. Is I had to go in and actually research the subject more. I had to be actually actually felt that was an experience where I felt more on my game because I knew so little about the subject, because I had to be organized. I had to do exactly what I recommended earlier, which was anticipate what questions could come that I might not know the answer to. And in that way, I think I educated myself more on that subject than I had previously during other public speaking experiences. Um, so something like that, for example, actually helped me grow as a person, which I think we always have to remember. None of us is a complete expert in anything unless you won a Nobel Prize, and even then I'm sure that Nobel laureates who win that prize say I'm still a lifelong learner too. So I think in that way I turned that disappointing experience into a growth opportunity. And then where I felt great about myself,
So you basically making us understand if a speaker is facing problems where they don't have familiarity with a subject, they shouldn't take that as a problem. Rather, use it as a growth tool. Make extensive research into such subject and hope for certain various questions from many angles. I guess that is a great solution towards facing your fears as well, and also embracing your anxiety in public speaking. Also,
Definitely.
while we still wait, any more questions from our listeners? Any
Well,
more?
to answer the other half of Aswin's question, I
Okay.
guess a moment where I felt great about public speaking is, obviously it feels good to feel recognized for, showing that passion and for having the experiential knowledge. So when I joined the Global Policy Diplomacy and Sustainability Fellowship, the GPODS Fellowship, they actually gave opportunities for fellows who were well versed enough in a subject to actually represent the founding company, Global Policy Insights, at high level United Nations events. So, Arpit Chaturvedi, one of the co founders of the organization of the fellowship, he actually recommended that I speak at the UN Habitat Urban Breakfast, as well as the International Organization for Migration, and I had an incredible opportunity there and did feel really great about myself to speak on behalf of Global Policy Insights to how education must be improved, especially now during COVID-19, where children are and youth are at the furthest risk of being left furthest behind. And this is, actually bringing back to that information and telecommunications systems. Yeah, it's not an equal playing field out there right now. Education is not being equally distributed, and COVID has only exacerbated that. So in a way, yes, it felt great to feel recognized for that, but also to be able to present my ideas on behalf of this organization and represent them at such a high level UN meeting goes beyond just, oh wow, I was recognized, cool. No, I have an opportunity to actually say something that might enhance the situation. So for me, it's, one of my policy highlights has always been introducing or integrating a project-based sustainable development component into educational curricula, and having the chance to present that at the IOM was truly remarkable. And, if my words at all had any impact on how these intergovernmental organizations were going to approach education moving forward, like I think that's, just incredible in and of itself. So that I hope that answers your question.
That is actually, that is an incredible feat of navigating through these scenarios. For you to be able to, be able to represent this organization as international space, and also speaking for them, it shows leadership qualities, and it has also be expressed to public speaking. For sure, I know some of your points will be used by them because no man is an island of knowledge, so every knowledge is well acceptable. So
Exactly.
while we're still expecting more questions from our listeners. Any more questions? This is Miss Caroline Rakus-Wojciechowski. Are there more questions? So far so good. We've gone on public speaking. We understood public speaking is the act of giving live presentation, and we talk about the importance of public speaking. And on the importance, we see public speaking helps in building effective communication skills. It has played a major role in leadership advocacy. Also, public speaking has goals of creating, innovating, and influencing people for good. Also, we go into the importance of public speaking in leadership roles. We find public speaking helping building confidence in leaders, helping building good communication skills, both verbal and physical communication skills. It helps in building advocacy, and it helps in building leadership, transparency, and humility. Also, we find it in building accountabilities for leaders. We see it in also embracing their anxieties for those who are introverted. And we also see public speaking helps in exercising leadership roles. We've had presidents such as Barack Obama, we have Macron from France. We have lots of them who engage with their citizens through public speaking. They share their ideas through public speaking, which gives them good leadership skills. Any more questions from our listeners? Any suggestions? We will be rounding up in a couple of minutes.
Go for it, Eswin. If you want to unmute yourself, I'm not sure if you have that capability.
One more question from Aswin. He said, "What is one thing you could improve if given the chance in the international meetings you've been in?" So, what is one thing you will change?
Oh, to be honest, I understand why the United Nations or the World Bank Group have their young professionals program be so highly competitive, but I do wish that more people had an opportunity to engage in those kinds of discussions. Now, I think the United Nations this year during COVID, because everything had to be digital, did a great job in making their meetings accessible and transparent. And I feel like it was an opportunity for all of us to understand, okay, these are the inner workings of the United Nations. I'm seeing how they operate, I'm seeing the bureaucracy, and I'm seeing how I might potentially get involved or how I might be inspired to progress my own project in such a way. But on the other hand, I do wish that there were more opportunities for youth and young professionals to be engaged, because right now it is still a lot of persons who are 35 and up. And I think, especially given the current climate situation, youth are going to be inheriting that, young professionals are inheriting that. And while we are still, striving hard to do all of our master's programs right now, I think having more internships or fellowship opportunities working alongside those organizations would actually give us a better understanding of, okay, this is what we need to do moving forward, this is who we need to reach moving forward. And I even think, the UN might be disadvantaging itself by not taking more advantage of youth and their own abilities, because our generation is one that does incredible communications and digital marketing. Perhaps we could reach more people, more investors that way, or even create better partnerships or increase sponsorships towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals through our work. So I think finding ways that the UN could incorporate more young professionals into their work, I think would be quite advantageous and something I would like to see implemented moving forward.
Oh, that is an innovative thought. Encouraging the United Nations to have more youths into their practices so they can be well prepared for the real world by the time they're done with their schedules. That is great. We still have more time for more questions, and if there is not, we will be rounding off in a couple of minutes. More questions to come in. For those who are introverted, like we said, a solution for you guys in regards to public speaking to build your leadership skills is one, you need to know your audience. Once you know your audience, you will be able to kill your anxieties. You know your audience. The next one is to know your subjects. Know what you're practicing. You don't need to cram your words. Get your key points. Be able to express yourself. Do more practices, and you will be able to face the audience. Also, you need to focus on your message. When we go on live speaking, we see people who can't look straight into the face of those listening to them. Just like you say, eye to eye ball connection. You need to find a connection with your audience while you're also focusing on your message. Also, you need to practice. Public speaking skills is not an inherited skills. It is a skill you can build. So the more you practice, the more you get to know it. We have just 9 minutes left. One more question to go before we round up. One more question. And if there are no questions, okay, a question from Mr. Adetumbi. He says, "What is the best approach to delegation, or should I rather say, your approaches to delegation, which produces best results?"
Can you clarify on delegation what you mean by that? By me personally delegating to others, or me representing my thoughts on behalf of an organization?
I believe. What is the best approach to delegation?
Mhm.
Uh, I'll say it goes in two ways: delegating duties to people and also representing them. I would like us to have that in a time frame of like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Sure. So I would say that me delegating to others is, we're all working professionals. to be able to do everything we want to do at once is impossible. I know I rely on my best friend. She's my right-hand woman since college, and just going to give a shout out to Alora Landsberg. She's my vice president in more things than, I dare care to admit, but she is absolutely wonderful. And that's something, finding that network, that community of people who you can trust, who you can spitball soundboard ideas off of, and who are going to support you in any way possible that they can. And then also just, someone that you trust to also help you with your initiatives, even when they don't have time but they're still willing to help you, and vice versa, you supporting them when they need you. I think finding such a community to delegate to and help you do your research, or to help you practice anytime that you need it, proofread any policy articles, I think that is, something that I've been blessed with. And if you are lucky enough to have 3 or 4 people in your entire life that can also fill that role for you, I think that is an incredible, incredible thing. And then when you are acting on behalf of an organization as a delegate, I would honestly just go back to what I keep trying to reiterate, is being approachable, being humble, and just letting the passion shine through in your work, and being honest and transparent in what your intentions are, why you are passionate about this particular field, or why you are representing the organization that you are representing, and why you think that by collaborating, or by adding your thoughts to this particular organization, for example, with the IOM, why you think those ideas would benefit and progress the betterment of society moving forward. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, thank you. So you basically just made us understand that to delegate, you need to work with those who are accountable, and also you need to be transparent, and also have humility, so you can be approachable by your delegates. That is well understood. Without further much ado, I believe we've come to the conclusion of our discussion, and I hope our listeners, as well as the speakers as well, learned something from this Leadership and Mentorship Forum. See you next time on our Leadership and Mentorship Forum, brought to you by YOPS. We are the International Youth Organization for Peace and Sustainability. So on our next note, we'll see you. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.